The one thing I've got going for me is this definitely is probably the biggest crowd that Parks and Wildlife has ever had at one meeting, so, you know, I guess that's good. Here comes Perry. We've got some Boy Scouts over here, and what we'd like to do is turn it over to them. They're gonna do a flag ceremony for us, so we'll start with you guys.
Audience, please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Scout salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. 2. Please be seated.
Thanks, guys. So I will bend over and do my best to talk closer to this microphone. If for some reason you guys start having problems with any one of us with hearing, just let us know. I appreciate that. Thank you. I'm going to start off just with introducing myself. My name is JT Ramatsky. I am the Northwest Regional Manager for Colorado Parks and Wildlife, housed and living in Grand Junction, so just down the road here. I've got everything in the northwest part of the state. Perry Will is the Area Wildlife Manager up here, and he's here as well. So I also want to acknowledge a couple of our Parks and Wildlife Commissioners who have come this evening just to be a part of this. Commissioner and Chairman John Howard, if you want to stand up. And Commissioner Carrie Hauser, a local just down the street. And Commissioner Marie Haskett. And Commissioner Robert Bray. So I appreciate those guys being here. This is, I'll tell you, this is the first opportunity that Colorado Parks and Wildlife has had, really, to have a meeting, to engage with the public, to start talking about an incredibly tragic event that has just left this valley in chaos. I feel for you. We've got folks living and working here, and you know I've continually said that we're a part of the community as well, and you know I watched a lot of things happen during the course of this tragic event, and I think what are we at, about 13,000 acres? Scott probably knows. $17 million to fight this fire. Good thing we got some rain tonight, so that's good. 3 structures, and my heart goes out to those folks that lost their houses. But you know, from Colorado Parks and Wildlife's perspective, I also wanted to take a minute and at several of these town hall meetings that were hosted every night during that fire and that event, you know, the acknowledgement to the firefighters and the community. Man, I respect you guys. If you have to have something happen, I can't imagine living in a better community with a lot of love and a lot of generosity from a lot of people. So I really want to express our appreciation for all the firemen, firewomen, everybody else that put themselves out there to fight this fire and to literally save Elgibel and some other things. I also want to acknowledge my staff. A bunch of those folks are here tonight, and we did that on purpose. This isn't a show of force. This is a show of respect and love for this community. And some of these Parks and Wildlife officers that are here tonight are here because they want to be a part of this process moving forward. Perry, I've told him this a couple different times, but you know, Perry's been around for a long time. He's one of those old school game wardens that they broke the mold after, and you know, I learned a lot from him. I continue to learn things, but I've never seen anybody with more heart and passion and ownership of any kind of situation in the world. And so for him and all his staff and the heavy equipment operators and everybody else that poured over 2,000 hours of time into this incident, I appreciate them. I appreciate what we've done. And I want you guys to know that this situation is not lost on me, that we need to identify a path forward. And that's what we're here for tonight. I said this earlier, but tonight really is the first opportunity we've had. And, you know, my goal is a couple things. We're going to have this meeting. Next week, we're going to have another meeting. And that's not the end of it. My goal is to find practical solutions that work for Eagle County, for the town of Basalt, for the whole Roaring Fork Valley, for all the residents up here. Yeah, we're your neighbor, we're your friends, and I think we've got some incredible relationships, and I intend to maintain those and improve on ones that I can. And we want to come out at the end of this better than we've ever been before. And I know you guys do too, and I respect that about you. At the same time, I also have to be cognizant of all the visitors to our state, all the citizens of our state, all the other users, all the other people. This is a very polarized issue, without question. And we're going to work through that stuff. So I want you to know, and I'm not going to take a lot of time, and you can applaud that later, but I really do want you to know that what happens tonight, what happens next week, what happens in the months to come or years to come, what happens with me or Perry or anybody else, those things are not lost on us. We want to do what's right for this valley. We want to do what's right for the sportsmen and women of this state, the people who fund our agency, and we're going to come out of this better than we ever were. And so I can't say enough for having this many people in this room. This is, I know this has personally affected everybody, and I can't own that. But my heart's out to everybody in this room and everybody that couldn't make it tonight. I really sincerely want you to know that your words, your wisdom, your thoughts, your concerns, your anger, whatever it is not lost on us, and this is an opportunity to be heard. So I'm going to start with that. And the first person I want to introduce to come up here is our Executive Director of the Department of Natural Resources, Director Bob Randall.
Hey, good evening, and if you can't hear me, please wave if I need to speak up or more directly. Again, my name's Bob Randall. I'm the Executive Director of the Department of Natural Resources. Hold it close to my face, right up in here. How's that? All right. It is my privilege to serve Governor Hickenlooper and to work with Colorado Parks and Wildlife, which is one of the department's 6 divisions. I just want to take just a moment to thank all of you for being here tonight. I want to thank the town council for the town of Basalt, the community. I want to thank the U.S. Forest Service, the Eagle County Sheriff's Office, the town of Basalt Fire Department, and everyone else who was a part of putting this evening together. I want to thank you for your engagement. I want to thank you for your commitment to working through this, and I want to thank you for coming out on a rainy Tuesday night. I also want to thank Colorado Parks and Wildlife staff for their work, both during and since the fire, working with emergency responders on evacuations and on roadblocks, cutting fire lines and installing check dams to stem the debris flow in rain events like this. I was here in mid-July and visited the range and the site of the fire, and I'm proud of Parks and Wildlife's work to be a part and a partner with this community. I do look forward to having a meaningful conversation tonight. I'm going to stick around through all of the comments, and I'll be around later if anyone wants to visit. I am dedicated to ensuring that this process is open and it's transparent and that it's meaningful for all the users and for this community. So thank you again for the opportunity to be here. Thanks for your dedication and again your resilience. And I'll turn it back over to JT. Thank you.
Got to hold it. That's what you got to do. All right. Thank you very much, Director Randall. I appreciate those comments too. Colorado Parks and Wildlife, you know, in engaging and getting some of these going, we wanted to have kind of an outside group help facilitate some of these discussions in hopes that we can have a very productive path forward. So with that, I'm going to introduce our facilitator from Keystone, Julie Shapiro. So Julie, come on up and I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks all. Can y'all hear me? Good enough? Okay, great. Yes, as JT said, I'm Julie Shapiro with Keystone Policy Center. We're a nonprofit, non-advocacy organization. We're based out of Summit County. We've been there for 40 years and we work locally, statewide, regionally around the country, trying to help bring different perspectives to bear on decision making. So we were asked to help design these meetings and also facilitate them. And so that's what I'll be doing here with the help of my colleagues. You'll see them around the room, Johanna Gibbs and then Allie Langley over there is diligently taking notes that we'll use to produce a report of both meetings in the end. Full transparency, as JT alluded to, CPW hired us to do this. We work under a statement of independence, so irrespective of where our funding comes from, we're here to work for you all as a community to bring your voices to bear, and we hope we can do that tonight. So my job right now is just to help set your expectations and the ground rules for the evening. So if you have your agenda in hand, hopefully you all pick that up. Just want to share a little bit about what the night's going to look like. So the purpose of this meeting, as has kind of already been stated, is it's to share information, it's to answer questions, it's to listen to suggested solutions, and strive to find common ground. And we know that many of you have come here with questions in mind and solutions in mind. We look forward to hearing those. We encourage everyone to come together as one community. So move from contention to collective problem solving around the issues and concerns that you all come to this meeting with tonight. And to do that, we've set up two meetings that kind of build upon each other. Tonight's meeting will include a background, brief remarks from Perry, Will, to tell you a little bit more just about the facts and background of the shooting range. And then we'll also have a question and answer panel with a number of the folks who have been your first responders and involved in dealing with the fire as it came up, and also folks who are involved in the management of the shooting range, so all from your local agencies and departments. Following that, we'll hear from a couple invited stakeholders to kind of set the stage for sharing additional information and context around what brings you all here tonight, and then we'll move to open public comment, in which we'll have a chance for folks to come and make brief comments focusing on solutions. And I really want to emphasize that. You'll hear me say that. We really want you to come to the microphone with solutions tonight in mind. Offer something that we can use as we go forward to think about decision making. No decisions are being made here tonight. No decisions are being made on Monday's meeting. Tonight's about brainstorming and sharing. We'll build on that next week. And as JT alluded to, the process will continue beyond that as decisions get made out into the future. So keeping all that in mind, on your agenda there are some ground rules, and I'll just read them out loud, and I hope we can all internalize them and use them to make for a productive meeting. First one, actually, it's not on your agenda, but please take a moment to silence your phones. And from there, speak and write respectfully, no personal attacks. Listen respectfully and empathetically to different points of view. We know there are different points of view in this room. We're asking you all to come and listen, and let's see what we can build together from that experience of hearing each other. Please respect time limits to enable others to speak. You'll see that when we're doing comments and questions, I'll run a time clock, keep everybody accountable on their toes, and we will ask you to stop when the time runs out, because we do know that there's more people in this room than we can hear from tonight. I'll say more about that in a moment. To that end of respecting time limits, please be succinct when agreeing with prior comments. So if someone's already said something that you fully agree with, maybe you don't need to say anything at all, or maybe you need to come to the mic and just say, I just want to say that I agree with things previously said. Let's make room for continued brainstorming and new ideas to come out throughout the evening. Promote joint community problem solving, offer solutions, as I've already said, rather than complaints. Let's find a path forward. And please, focus on the topic at hand. The topic at hand is solutions for the shooting range. This is not about gun rights. Make that clear. We're talking about the shooting range and what happens with that going forward. This meeting is about sharing ideas. It's not about showcasing numbers. So I want to make that really clear too, and that relates to the ground rule I said before about if you're going to agree, please do so succinctly. Right, so it's about getting lots of things on the table. A comment doesn't equal a vote. I want to make that very clear. Right, we're approaching this qualitatively. Let's hear what you all have to offer in terms of solutions. But it's not an exercise in trying to overwhelm the mic with one view or another. It's just about getting as many ideas out as we can. Speak to interests, not positions. So you may have all come in with ideas on what you think should happen. We really want you to listen and express yourselves in terms of, what are your concerns and what are the solutions that address that concern. Often there's multiple solutions that can address any one concern. So think about what your core interests are. Help us understand those. And finally, let the facilitators facilitate. Again, we'll use some time clocks and other methods. You'll hear me jump in at the end of time running out. We have folks on the floor helping with the mics. Please just let us do that. And I don't anticipate any problems, but we'll just make sure we enforce the ground rules if we need to. So those are the ground rules, and then just a few more notes on expectations. We know this is a large meeting, and the turnout, of course, demonstrates the community interest, and we really appreciate and respect that. Knowing that there's not time for everyone to hold a microphone tonight, we've tried to provide a variety of ways to engage you all and your ideas. So there is the open comment period. There are comment boards on the outside hallway with the chance to post ideas in response to questions that are on your agenda. You could really do that at any time. There'll be time after we adjourn in this room to continue to do that this evening. There is also an online survey form, a Google form, linked directly from the CPW homepage. That just went live an hour ago, and you can go and answer the same questions there now or anytime over the course of the next week and a half. So there's lots of ways to provide thoughts. And I just want to add as well that the next meeting will be in a different format. We'll focus more on smaller group discussions, trying to build out some of the solutions that you all provided, trying to analyze them more, think in more depth around them. So that will be a way to continue the conversation as well at the next meeting in a different kind of format. So with that all in mind, one last thing to let you know is there's media here, and this is an open meeting, and it's on record. Grassroots TV is actually live streaming this right now, and it's recording it as well for rebroadcast later. So just know that, especially if you're coming to the microphone. Of course, it's your choice on your own time, wandering around after if you want to talk to the media, and that's completely up to you. So with all that in mind, I think that sets hopefully the schedule and expectations for the evening. We're going to move now to a background presentation, history of the shooting range and management considerations for the future from Perry Will.
Thank you, Julie. Can you hear me all right? Just want to echo and mirror some of the comments that JT said, that this process, we do want to hear from the community, and a solution-based type situation that comes out of this. We truly are here to listen, and I think, as you know, our director said that nothing's off the table, so that's how we're approaching this. So we do want to hear from you. Please speak, or please leave the cards with your comments, and it'll be very much appreciated. A little background on the shooting range is we acquired this in 1940, and probably I know there's people in this room that knew Bob Terrell. He was a game warden here in Basalt, and Bob said he couldn't remember a time there wasn't shooting activity there at the range, and we bought that in 1940, and then he made that statement in 1969. Also, many in the room might know Rick Adams. He was a game warden here too. He made some of the same comments about how long the range had been in existence. It's kind of interesting. I was going back through some of the files on this, and the first purchase there with that state wildlife area, for Basalt State Wildlife Area, was a 527 acre purchase. It cost us a whopping $8,000. It's probably worth a lot more than that now, but that's how it all started. So management options going forward. Like I say, we're here to listen to all of them. I've put on this slide a lot of things from the community that's been provided, different options from the community. But here's a 1951 photo on the left, and then a 2017 photo on the right. So you can see there has been some development there around the range, especially over there in the Wilds subdivision. But not a lot has changed since the 40s, 50s, I mean, as far as development around it, but it's pretty close there up, Homestead and the Wilds. So I talked about the options provided by the community. We've heard everything from keep it open with modifications, enclose it indoors. Indoor shooting probably work for the pistol and rifle. Pretty tough to do it for a shotgun for 5 stand and skeet and trap. Be pretty tough to do. Enclosed outdoor, there's some options from actually from Germany. They have some bullet trap type things that really reduce noise and and those type of things. We're looking into some of that. Water available for fire protection. I think some of you have heard me speak before that we have applied for grants like that to try to get water down there for firefighting purposes, as well as just keeping things damp and green around the range. We've talked about managers or range officers, possibly law enforcement, lease the range to a private concessionaire, let someone privately manage the range so they have a range officer there at all times. Obviously that would be fee-based with a private concessionaire. Anything from improving the signage at the range. The incident that happened there, of course, there was signs up, but I don't know, maybe bigger and bolder, I don't know. Limit the types of firearm use up there, and then any additional fire mitigation measures. We've done a lot of that after the fire in 2012. We did a lot of fire mitigation there. I think the conditions this year are just so dry. I mean, I don't know if we've seen those conditions before. The mitigation work I'm sure helped, but it sure didn't preclude it from taking off. We can talk about soil sterilization on the range, so there's absolutely nothing there that can burn. The fee use, pay to play, that's been brought up several times. Alternative range site, video cameras to monitor usage. Talk about from the previous slide, building codes and stuff for building around the range. And then we do want to develop advisory groups or task forces, probably after the second meeting, to work on solutions of what's going to happen with that range. Also reduced hours, automatic closure during fire restrictions. Stage 2 does not close the shooting range, but we may have protocol in the future that when the county goes to stage 2 that shooting ranges are closed. Same thing with automatic closure. And then also there's been suggested that with a range officer we have like a little entry house or whatever. When you come up on the range you sign in and you sign out, and you also inspection your ammo, what you'll be shooting, type of weapons, that type of thing. That requires a full-time range officer when the range is open. And additional noise mitigation, we've been checking into that quite a bit. There's some real options there for noise mitigation, including the shotgun ranges. So we're still moving ahead on that. And then of course the option of just moving the range. So the questions, how do we manage a wide variety of thoughts, beliefs, philosophies, and ideas? What's the right thing to do? That's what we're doing. And should one group give up a recreational activity because the other group doesn't like it? I mean, that's a big question. I mean, all of you people I've talked to during this whole situation and incident has been pretty much noise and safety is the issue with most people. But I think that kind of says it there. We do all kinds of youth hunts up there with the kids, the Boy Scouts, 4-H shooting sports use that range, and it's a great thing for the youth in this community as well as the other users of the range in this community. And solutions, like I say, it's solution based. That's what we're shooting for. You know, JT mentioned it. We all live here. We are the community. And we want to come up with a community solution. And I know you can't make 100% of the people happy 100% of the time, but if we can get close, that's where we're headed. Thank you.
Is it back on? Okay. All right, thanks, Perry. So again, just a little bit of background information, but we imagine that folks come with questions tonight as well as solutions and comments to make. So we want to start with trying to answer questions, just trying to get information out on the table. And so the next part of our agenda is a panel that's strictly for Q&A. That's an opportunity to ask questions about the range as related to the fire, about anything kind of within the scope of this meeting. So at this time, we're going to be asking for questions only. Again, questions only, not comments. So please keep your question brief. We'll put a 30-second time clock. We know it takes a little wind up sometime to get to the question you want to ask. We will be moving to comments afterwards. And I'll jump in and ask for your question if we haven't quite heard it yet by the end of that time. So we want to ask to come up to the stage here, our panelists. We've got, actually I'll let them introduce themselves and maybe flip your name tents up. I know those in the back might not be able to see it. But we've got folks from CPW, we've got folks from your fire department, from sheriff's office, we've got U.S. Forest Service, the town of Basalt, so a variety of folks who hopefully can collectively answer your questions. We'll go down the line in just a moment here. You can direct a question to a specific panel member or just a general question, and we'll figure out who needs to answer that for you. And the way that we're going to handle the questions is to just use these microphones. We'll queue up on either side of the far aisles, so feel free to come down to ask a question. If we don't get to all your questions in this 30-minute time slot, we'll ask you, there's one of the things out there on the comment boards is what questions didn't we get to? What do we need to answer for you all so that we know to roll that in for the background for the next meeting? So let me just ask folks to go down the line. We're going to be sharing the mic up here, guys. Again, if you have a question, come on down. But let's just ask you to introduce yourselves really fast.
Hi, I'm Scott Thompson, the Fire Chief of Basalt.
I'm Mike McWilliam, the Eagle County Undersheriff with the Sheriff's Office in Eagle.
And JT Vermatsky, I already introduced myself.
Perry Will, Area Wildlife Manager for Area 8.
Cleve Williams, Deputy Chief, Basalt Fire.
Hi, good evening. I'm Ryan Mahoney. I'm the Town Manager of Basalt.
Hi, I'm Scott Fitzwilliams, the Forest Supervisor on the White River National Forest.
Safety goal number 1, nobody trip on microphone cords tonight, please. Okay, so what questions do y'all have? Please just come on down, ask one, get the information on the table that you might need to have as you think about what solutions you might want to offer. So just come on up to the mic so that everyone can hear you. Where's Rebecca? Can we get Rebecca over here too? Okay. And again, I'm going to run a clock, not to be obnoxious, but just to keep everyone accountable. I know it can go fast, but go ahead.
Hi, there's a question for CPW, either JT or Perry. What is your first obligation mandate stated for operations of CPW?
Great, thanks. And actually, I forgot to mention, whenever you're coming up to the mic tonight, if you can just say your name and just where you're from, give people some context, that would be great.
Michael Kerr, Basalt.
That's a good question. I appreciate that. So, we've got multiple ranges around the state of Colorado. We work hard to manage those ranges to provide for safe opportunities for the public to go and recreate for shooting sports. And so in doing so, we work really diligently not only on the location of those spots, some of those are historically planted, as Basalt is for sure, but ultimately the number one thing is for a safe shooting facility for our youth, for recruitment and retention. And we have to operate those things within the context of certain laws as well. Does that answer that?
My question is, what's your first mandate? Not about the shooting ranges. Isn't Colorado Parks and Wildlife first mandate about wildlife and protecting wildlife, management of wildlife, not so much a shooting sport?
Preserve, protect, enhance, and manage the state's wildlife for the citizens of the state and the visitors of the state. Sorry, I thought you were talking about shooting ranges specifically. I'll just hold the mic.
Jamie Hunt from Basalt. So where does the funding have to come from for any of the work that goes into doing any mitigation or moving the shooting range? How does that all work?
Appreciate that too. We've undertaken several projects over the last few years with respect to shooting ranges. First and foremost, we're a cash-funded agency, so we have enterprise status, and therefore we don't take any general funds from the state coffers. We're funded from sportsmen and women primarily in this state and also across the nation because we get Pittman-Robertson excise tax revenue, which is significant. That excise tax revenue is a significant amount of money that we get as an agency that comes from the sale of firearms and ammunition and other things. So that's where our funding comes from as a state. We direct that then for conservation work. We also do stuff with T&E species, other things, wildlife management, property acquisition, a litany of other things. I'll be honest, in my opinion, shooting sports has kind of fallen off of many game and fish agencies over the last few decades, and projects like Cameo down the road and some of these other things are a direct reflection of the need to provide safe shooting places for youth and other people to go out and recreate and do that. We see federal lands and other places being closed or prohibitions being placed on the inability to go out and recreate and do shooting sports safely. And so as an agency that looks at those constituents, that's generally where those dollars come from for that type of infrastructure needs or changes or maintenance or operation.
I'm Steve Chase. I live in Basalt. Perry, you brought up that there hasn't been much development around the range, but I think it's interesting to imagine the evolution of Basalt in the last 70 years, and what was the population that the gun range served in 1940, 50, 60, and so forth. But the question really is, and I think it's a question that is for all of us, and that is, if you were going to put in a shooting range that served the valley, and there's no question that we need one, would it be placed where it presently exists?
In an ideal world, and if we had do-overs and could start again, maybe not. But that's what we're left with. That range has been in existence, and yes, Basalt has grown around it. There's no question. The population of Basalt has grown. We have 5.5 million people in the state of Colorado. But yeah, it is what it is. But in a perfect world, could there be a better place? Sure.
Thanks, and just a reminder to mind the clocks. Thanks. Other questions?
Chris Wyckoff, born and raised here, grew up shooting on that range my whole life. Is one of your guys' main concerns that if you shut that down, with all this influx of people moving here, now they're going to go start shooting out in the woods, out in BLM land, and they're going to go, wow, I'm taking 600-yard shots here and have no idea where they are in general, let alone how to shoot a 600-yard shot. Are you concerned that closing that down will be more dangerous for the general public in surrounding areas?
We've talked a lot. Maybe, Scott, that's a good question for you as well. I'll throw in my 2 cents that, of course, right? I mean, again, we're losing some of these opportunities and places to recreate. The one thing that I will not do is criminalize the shooter or the recreational shooter or the hunter or anybody else. These things happen safely every day. We have way less incidents with hunting or these kind of things than we do with skiing. So I think that needs to be said, but I'm sure, Scott, if you don't mind.
You don't want me to talk? No. And just to clarify, the Forest Service or the federal government has no role in the decision of how this shooting range operates, funding it. We don't have any authority. They asked me to be on this panel because we thought this kind of question might come up. And we've seen across certainly the state of Colorado, it's been really poignant in Colorado and across much of the West as mountain communities become developed and more people are using the forest. The conflicts with recreational shooting across the forest or BLM lands or other public lands where we don't have a safe place. And what we've noticed unequivocally is when we don't have a place people can go, they go to the forest and they take televisions and refrigerators and everything else to go shoot at and use as targets. And it's in some areas of the state, it's a real problem. And tragically, we've had errant bullets kill people in campgrounds because of not having a safe shooting. Now, that doesn't eliminate that there are knuckleheads around and just do unsafe things. But where we have areas that have a safe, controlled shooting area, we have less problems that result on the forest with the trash. Of course, number one is safety, and in the case that we all are acutely aware of is fires. So I don't know what the answer is, but one of the things that I've said to JT and Perry is, whatever you do, just consider the impacts that could affect the public land around us.
Hi, my name is Dan Hess. I'm from Glenwood Springs. I use the range pretty extensively, and I've seen a lot of unsafe practices there over the years from shooters, and was wondering, going forward in the future at your ranges, if you've ever thought of putting in a permanent range safety officer, and having, checking people's ammunition, making sure they're not using incendiary or tracer ammunition. Thank you.
Yes, that's correct, and that's part of the options and things that have been suggested to us. I think as we go forward, it's not going to be under the same management practices that it was previously. No.
My name's Bob Larson, and I'm a Salt resident for a long, long time. I can't stand up here. But
you might as well dance, Bob. Huh? You might as well dance.
Oh, geez. Hey. Any rate, a few years ago, I had a neck surgery, and I started going up to I get tied up when I get in front of the shooting range, but it worked, and I can tell you, with the bullets, some of them are little bastards, excuse my language, but the thing is,
I'm sorry, we're on the time clock.
I don't care, but really, you don't have anybody up there.
Yeah, if we don't have a question, then we'll have to do a public comment later.
If you.
Hey Bob, yeah. We'd like to hear you. Please speak into the microphone.
Okay.
If we don't have a question.
I think what Bob was going to convey here was that he used to be a range officer there for 3 years, I believe, on the range there. Was there every day and did that as a volunteer. And I think his comment was going to be that when he was there doing that, I had far fewer issues with the range and with shooters. So I think he wanted to convey that a range officer it can be very important in that shooting situation.
Is that about right?
I've also had guns pointed directly at me, and that's bad. And if nobody's there, I run them out. I just run them out.
Bob said he'd run them out if they weren't behaving, so. That's the kind of range officer we need. Just run them off if they're not behaving. So thank you, Bob.
Hi, Matt McBrayer, grew up here. My question is what's the total value of the assets that are currently on the range?
That's hard to predict. The assets are probably easily $500,000, and then some of the sound mitigation stuff we done back there in 2012, that was about $172,000. But in today's world, if you went up there and did the dirt work alone, just the yards of dirt work, I know there's some contractors out in the audience, I'm sure could make a far better estimate than I on that, but it's easily over $500,000, easily.
Thank you. My name is Jimmy Hunter. I've lived on the south face of Basalt Mountain since 1986. And I have a two-part question. First, with high country buck season coming up and first, second, et cetera, range times at a premium. First question is, what is your criterion for reopening the range? Second part is, what is your projected estimated time? Thank you.
Thanks for that question. That's I'll take a stab at that. So no doubt, I've been getting a lot of calls. We've all been getting a lot of calls about where can we go do this, where can we go sight in our rifles, muzzle loaders, archery equipment, all these other things. And a lot of folks in the room know that immediately given this fire, I shut down every shooting facility in the northwest part of the state. I did that absolutely out of a cautionary stand just to make sure that all of our staff could go out and really evaluate these things. You know, every AWM that works for me got in touch with fire districts, fire marshals, the sheriff's department, went back out, looked at all those different facilities. We immediately were able to reopen 3 of those. 2 of them, we had some additional mitigation strategies proposed to us, which we went ahead and did. So as of today, in my region, every shooting range is open except for this Basalt range. As far as timelines, again, you know, we're not making decisions tonight, next week, likely in the weeks to come. And I know that that's not the answer some folks want to hear, but I think, again, it's really important for us to make sure that we are communicating and having an honest and transparent conversation with this community and the users and making sure that we're going to do it right. So I can't answer your second part, but I appreciate it.
Pardon me, but how about the first? What are your criterion for reopening the range?
Well, I think the criterion, again, we have not defined that. I haven't anyways, and I have not been given direction to define what that criteria looks like. You know, to say we're going to get to 100% consensus, I mean, let's be real. I doubt that's going to happen. And Perry said it well when, you know, you're not going to please everybody. And that's not my goal. If my goal was to please everybody, I might as well just stay at home. Well, I can't even stay at home because I wouldn't please my wife there either. But, you know, I know. But the criteria really, I think, I'm looking for this group, this town, this county, the users, the folks who really are opposed to this range, to come together. Perry mentioned earlier the idea of having a steering committee or some kind of strategy put in place where we can get some of those folks together and maybe come up with something that is meaningful and move forward in a way that we can reopen it. And that's as good as I can give you right now.
Hi, my name's Kellen Johnson. I was wondering, why haven't you checked people's ammo in the past?
Why have we not checked their ammo? That's a great question. I appreciate you coming up here and asking me that. You know, some of our ranges have staff there. Most of our ranges don't. We've never really gotten to a place where we charge for the use of these ranges or fully staff these ranges. Cameo, our new complex that we're trying to open up, is a fully staffed kind of range where those kind of ammunition and different things will be looked at and evaluated. We have used volunteers. You know, I wish I had some of the numbers to tell you, but the amount of volunteerism in the state of Colorado for our agency in particular is mind-blowing. So those volunteers are given full credit for what they do and how they help us with that, but we really have never taken it upon ourselves to say we're going to check all your ammunition.
Kellen, I'd like to follow up with that. I see he's got a shooting sport shirt on there, so part of what we bank on is youth learn how to do it the right way, and then when they're adults, they know how to do it, so the ammo doesn't need checked. And if we get to these youth like Kellen here, and they're taught in the proper way, they don't need checked in and out of a shooting range. They already got it figured out, and they're responsible shooters.
All from me?
Steve Saunders, Aspen, Colorado. I have a question for Basalt Town Manager. Obviously, nothing's going to happen in the near future without change. Change costs a lot of money. Has the town of Basalt given any consideration to subsidizing these changes that kind of benefit the locals of your town and your community?
Sure. I think that the town has discussed a number of options going forward and really wanting to hear of what those solutions might be. I think that there's a possibility that we could have some contribution. The one thing that we have explored are that there are, as far as just the one-time infrastructure building can be done through grants and things at the state level. But if there is a solution that we come to that the community can agree on, I think that I would make a recommendation to the town council that we look at our ability to participate in that. So it'll right now I can't say sure we're there. If it's $300,000 a year, I still have roads to maintain and salaries to pay and those types of things. But if it's reasonable, I think we're looking for a solution just like the rest of the folks up here at the table. So.
Stacy Kraft, I live in Basalt. Can you tell us what contingency plan you have for hunters for this hunting season, like at South Canyon or something? And then can the town and CPW also talk about the Cameo Range and that awesome public-private partnership that's happened down there that's resulted in a really world-class facility? That seems like such an awesome model for here. We have world-class everything here except we don't have a world-class shooting range, and that just happens when you move it a couple of miles outside of town.
Thanks for that. So the contingency right now, again, this localized area is there's a bit of a deficit with a facility or a place to go shoot or sight in your rifles or do those kind of things. And I again will say that it happens all the time on public land very safely. We don't necessarily want to shove everything off to public land, as you heard Scott mention earlier. We do have other assets that are available. The West Rifle Creek Shooting Range is another very nice model shooting facility we have that's not too far away. We've got some other private clubs that we're at least in communication with about offering opportunities for shooting or sighting in. I know the club and rifle, they allow free public sight-in days. So there's some opportunities out there. We need to vet some of those things and see if we can't offer up some other solutions. And if folks in the room ultimately want us to reopen this thing for sight-in days, I'll do it tomorrow. I think we need to acknowledge that need as well. I appreciate that. To your second question about Cameo, it really is a private-public partnership. This is something very new, I think, and unique to not just Parks and Wildlife, but the state of Colorado. We, sportsmen and women in Colorado Parks and Wildlife, are not solely funding this project. We're looking for grants and donors and public or private enterprise, corporations, other things. We're trying to drive economic development by something epic, something big to bring business and shooters. This Saturday is our ribbon cutting grand opening ceremony, so thanks for giving me the mic chance here. But we've got the Colorado State IDPA Championship this Saturday, open to the public. We've got 19 states in one country, over 200 shooters coming into that, and we have a lot of private enterprise. And so I think to your point, there's a lot of opportunities, whether it's using shooting clubs or groups or organizations or even businesses to help assist in some of the management and operation issues that we have. Those things should not be lost on us, and I hope that is getting to what you were asking, but that I appreciate the opportunity for that.
Time check, we have about 10 minutes left for Q&A, so plenty of time for folks in line here. Go ahead.
I'm Bart Chandler. I live up the Frying Pan. I've been using the range since 1980. My question is for anyone at the table. Can you identify a single property that we could move the range to that would be within reasonable distance for the shooters from Glenwood, Basalt, and Aspen?
Thank you, sir. I'll start, but these guys are local and they know this stuff way better than I do. I would just, I'll just make a couple comments that, it's not going to be cheap. I don't think we should brush aside those kind of opportunities. From a lead perspective, once we pull out of a shooting facility, at that point in time, we're on the hook to remediate any of the lead or environmental issues that are there now. This is a solid place we have now, but if there's a place to move it, that's great. I think one of the challenges that these folks and others will face is we can probably find a place, maybe even on public land or something like that, but at what point in time in 10 years or 20 or 30 years do we have a commitment that there won't be houses close to that? And if you look across the country in Oregon, Florida, in hundreds of cases with other shooting ranges, there are houses literally next door to shooting ranges and they're operated safely. Now they may be operated different than this one, I'll be quite frank, but I think we have some opportunities here that we should not push aside. But anybody else want to?
I think from the town of Basalt's perspective, we do want to explore what different options there are out there for pieces of land that make sense for a shooting range. The issue is, if you find a place that's next door to people that already live there, they might not be super excited about that. So, we've got to take that into consideration. I have had a conversation with the city manager down in Glenwood, and they do have a shooting range, albeit it's in South Canyon and perhaps not the most convenient for those of us that live up valley, but it is an option. They're interested, right now it has a lease on it, but they're interested in exploring possibilities perhaps with that lessee or in the future as the town as an option. And then also, I've had brief conversations with CPW just about other places on land that they own just in the vicinity of the existing range that might be up and out of earshot from the where the existing range is. Other places that I know have been explored were down valley a little further. There's an old gravel pit, but I don't really know that that's a viable option. But we'd like to throw everything out on the table and sort of exhaust all options so that at least we can say that we've looked and we've done our due diligence, and certainly we're open to private land, public land, what have you, and we'll look at it with CPW and see what we can do.
Great, thanks. Let's get as many additional questions as we can in, and so I'll encourage our panelists to kind of enter lightning round as well to answer questions as thoroughly and as briefly as you can. Go ahead, one more response to this question.
So if you do close the range and move it, there's nothing that says that I still can't go right there and shoot. It's state land, so anybody can still go there and shoot. It doesn't have to be on a range. It's just how it is. You can shoot anywhere on BLM or Forest Service property. So if you move the range too far out, people aren't going to go to it. They're just going to go right there and shoot. Or over here, where it's not regulated right now. The other thing is now they have directions that they can shoot. And if you change that, if you move the range, people are still going to shoot, but it could be a lot more dangerous.
Yes, I guess this question is best asked to the town manager. I understand why CPW is conducting these meetings, because they have the authority over the range, and I really appreciate that, so thank you all from CPW. But are there any plans for the town, also some portion of the town government, to host meetings? Because given the gravity of this situation and the complexity of the issues we're dealing with, more than one forum might be useful.
At the moment, no, there's not. We've, essentially partnered with CPW on this and taken their lead, given that they have the ultimate decision on what happens with the range. We fully support this process and want to make sure that this process, goes down its planned course before we think about the need for one just for the town of Basalt. We're certainly wanting to hear from town of Basalt residents. The town of Basalt council has instructed me to bring back a resolution just as far as a position on the range. And otherwise, right now, we're in this process. So.
But what are the mechanisms by which you will either solicit or gather that input from the town citizens?
I think the process that we have here tonight, we're asking for those solutions, and then following it, the second meeting, of course, would drill down a little bit further. And then we've asked for a commitment, and I believe, we've heard that this evening, that just these 2 meetings, it won't end there, that there's a need to go beyond that to get meaningful public input. So. Mhm.
Peter Katinsky, Basalt. My question is, out of all the wildfires that we have in Colorado this year or years past, how many of those are actually have been started from gunfire itself?
Besides this one, I know of 2 other fires in Eagle County that were on gun ranges. Am I right, Mike? Those are the local ones. Those were suppressed. This is the only one that wasn't suppressed. So, of 3 in this area.
3 out of the whole state, out of all the fires in the state?
That's correct.
And all 3 of those were illegal shooting. They were shooting exploding targets or incendiary rounds.
I'm Michael Slappy. So how has the closure of this range affected the closure or affected other ranges in the area? Because some of them are on leases, so they have to pay other people to be able to use the range, so they might be losing money if they're not open.
Well, again, thank you. That's a good question. Again, our ranges that we manage were closed down to ensure that we were doing our due diligence and we were looking at everything that we could. And it has had a direct effect on private ranges, on other public ranges, whether it's on the Forest Service, other places. And so your point, I think, is a good point that, we may be the big person in the room with a whole lot of shooting ranges and outdoor recreation and all these things we're doing, but there's a cost to those decisions. And given the fire season that we all are facing in this state and what wildlife's facing and everything else, we also have an obligation to the natural resources and to make sure that we're doing things and assessing things properly. And that's part of the process to figure these things out. But there's ramifications to every decision. Thank you.
My name's Marty Schlumberger. I live in Woody Creek. And as a number of the people here this evening has discussed, we'd like to know what is the deficiency in the range, because as we understand it, the range wasn't touched by the fire. It could operate the same way it's been operating, and when it might open. If the stage 2 fire restriction is lifted, would it be all right with Scott to open the range again? Would it be all right with the DOW? Is it also...
We'll get that one in.
Dang, he got cut off.
I'm sorry. I don't have the ability.
So I'll give you a shot here in a second. So just as a clarification or a point here, the stage 1 to stage 2 and the variations, counties are different by counties. Federal land is open to this. Stage 2, going to a stage 2 restriction doesn't necessarily prohibit the discharge of firearms on a lot of these lands. So even in stage 2, we could reopen that range right now today. I think your other point, and the last time I was up there, we've got a whole bunch of ideas about ways that we can improve and mitigate for any other impacts. But to answer your question, we could open the range today.
Any others? Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. As far as the fire district and how I feel about it, we need to come up with a plan and we want ideas, but we've had 2 fires there. I understand the seriousness of we need to figure out a way for this not to happen again. And that's going to be my part of this process, is trying to find a way to keep things contained in the range. And I think the other part of it is that nothing illegal is shot on the range, because that's what caused this problem, that's what's caused the other problems. So how can we mitigate, how can we guarantee that we have safe use of the range?
Okay. That's good. Thank you to all of our panelists. And I know we didn't get to everyone's questions. One of the kind of comment boards out there is the opportunity to ask questions that we didn't get to answer today. So feel free to write those down, and we'll try to bring them forward in the next meeting as well. Also, everyone on our panel is around this evening, and will be around, after 9 o'clock in that window of time when we're still kind of milling around. So please feel free to catch them then. So thanks again. We're going to let you all go, and we're going to turn to our next agenda item. So you've heard from various agencies and others involved in managing and safeguarding your lands and your town. We also want to hear from stakeholders. We're going to hear really from all of you for the next hour. But to kick that off, we wanted to we invited 2 different stakeholders to come and provide some remarks, add some additional factual information and context in terms of their considerations for the range. So you'll be hearing from folks who have kind of spearheaded the conversation of what does it look like to move the range. You'll also hear from someone who's been looking more at what does it take to reopen this range. Really importantly, although it might seem like it based on what I just said, this is not a debate. We're not structuring this as who comes up and presents the best comments. This is a chance to get information on the table in a more extended format, so that hopefully when you all come to the public comment after that and have a minute each, hopefully some of the things that maybe were on your mind have already been raised, and we'll be able to get more information out up front. So we have asked each person to come and just share the information they think is important in a non-accusatory, future-looking, solutions-driven kind of way. So I want to set that tone. And so I want to ask Larry Emery and Mike Luciano to come up. Larry's going to go first, and then Mike. Keeping them on their toes, too. We got a 5-minute timer for them, and you can kind of come up to the podium to use the mic for that. So, Larry, where are you? Okay, there you are. And you'll be able to see the timer there. So. There you go.
Oh, don't put the timer right in front of me. I haven't even started yet. It's a reset.
There you go.
Can you hear me? Good evening. I'm here on behalf of the Roaring Fork Valley Sportsmen's Association. I'd like to thank Colorado Parks and Wildlife, Town of Basalt, Eagle County for organizing this event for us. We'd also like to formally thank all first responders, firefighters, law enforcement, and those from our valley who responded to the Lake Christine fire. We share our community's heartbreak in this unfortunate and tragic event. Hopefully we can have productive, fact-based discussion on how to move forward in the safest possible fashion in the best interests of our community as a whole. On a personal note, I've experienced 2 separate fires forcing the evacuation of my family from our home. So I get it, I understand it, it's a pretty serious situation. Today what I'd like to do is explain who we are, what we do, and how we may be of assistance in moving forward. We're the Roaring Fork Valley Sportsmen's Association, and we operate at the Lake Christine Range. The Roaring Fork Valley Sportsmen's Association was created in the 80s and is nonprofit. Our mission is to fund and provide a safe venue for shooting sports. Roaring Fork Valley Sportsmen's Association provides trap, skeet, and 5-stand clay target shooting for our members, visitors, and the general public. All of our revenues used to maintain and enhance a safe range environment, including range safety officers. All shooting at RFSVA is conducted under the supervision of range safety officers. We operate and are open to the public every weekend, providing a safe venue to learn, practice, and hone gun handling and safety techniques. During non-public hours, we also provide facilities for commercial operators who are crucial to our continued existence and conduct all activities under the direct supervision of range safety officers as well. We operate under a lease agreement from the Colorado Parks and Wildlife for the land on which our facility is located. At all times, our range is staffed with trained and certified range safety officers who supervise all shooting activities. Again, our mission shared with CPW is to provide a safe, controlled venue for both new and experienced shooters. This includes both members and the public. Along with our commercial operators, they teach and reinforce safe shotgun handling and shooting at all times. In a 35-year history, Roaring Fork Valley Sportsmen's Association, we have operated without incident or injury for 35 years. RFSVA supports and provides, along with CPW, a value service for organizations such as Boy Scouts, 4-H, disabled veterans with programs such as Miracle on the Mountains, women's programs, as well as supporting local school programs and events such as youth pheasant hunts and women's cast and blast. Our membership is primarily local and is managed by a local board of managers. Our members and visitors include hunters, fishermen, target shooters, competitive shooters, celebrities, business owners, government officials, people from all walks of life in the Roaring Fork community. Our membership and participants are valuable members of this community. RFVSA supports Colorado Parks and Wildlife in the promotion and development of all shooting sports. The Lake Christine Range has been a part of this valley since the 60s, even the 40s I hear now, when 4-H kids first started to learn and shoot there. The Basalt shooting range is a safe, controlled environment for a variety of groups, from our local law enforcement to youths, hunter education, sportsmen, hunters to practice and sight in, and for basic firearm safety and gun handling. The Lake Christine Range is the only public range in the Roaring Fork Valley. The range concentrates sportsmen into a safe, controlled environment and minimizes potential conflicts that may arise due to dispersed shooting on public and private lands. We support the Lake Christine Range as a safe, controlled environment to shoot. The closest available public alternative is located adjacent to the Rifle Reservoir. Closure of the Lake Christine Range will push shooting activities into public and private rounds all around our community. Without exception, the consequences of dispersed shooting on public and private lands has a far greater potential for increased conflicts and safety issues for the community as a whole. We support efforts in reopening the Basalt shooting range and believe the safest location is where it is located today. RFSVA is willing to work closely with CPW, the town of Basalt, and concerned citizens to ensure safety will be a top priority. We know how to operate a range. We're here to help.
Okay, thanks. That was very punctual. Mike. Very punctual.
Thank you. I can't beat that punctuality. That was too much. My name's Mike Luciano, but lived in Basalt for 23 years. My son and I use the range. I worked on the Basalt 2010 committee to try to solve some of the issues we're talking about here tonight. Basalt Town Council in 2010 made recommendations and resolutions. CPW agreed to them, DOW, and almost none of those were followed through on. This is a very intimidating topic. Many residents supporting its relocation are intimidated. They don't want to have their names associated with this, and they're certainly intimidated to come to a public event like this and speak. But we do really represent the silent majority of people who actually live here and put up with this. We're hopeful that the decision makers involved in the process recognize this dynamic and don't base decisions on popularity, convenience, petitions, or polls. The priority must fall on the health, safety, and well-being of its local community before assessing the effects on sporting enthusiasts. The main issue here is location. It's simply location. It's not about the merits of shooting ranges. This location back in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, non-impactful. It was local people sighting in their rifles using the range. CPW, around the year 2000, started to issue commercial use permits for outside outfitters. Once that happened, the usage of the range increased dynamically. We went from not hearing any gunshots. I moved here in '94, didn't know there was a range, to hearing them 7 days a week, 365 days a year. It's not, the issue isn't me hearing gunshots. The issue is our children. Our children have become desensitized to the sound of live gunfire on 3 school campuses. This is one of them. Elementary school and middle school is located less than 2,000 feet from the shooting range. CPW manages 7 other ranges. The average distance between the range and that downtown core is 3.8 miles. Reasonable amount of distance. The distance from our range to our downtown core is 10 times less than that. 10 times. 1,800 feet. With the tragedies over the last 2 decades occurring on school campuses, it's incumbent for our officials to make every effort to eliminate the sound of gunfire in our schools, not to encourage it. Our children are hearing gunfire on the playgrounds and inside the schools. It's location, guys, it's just location. Sound mitigation is, it's a challenge. I think it's close to impossible for an outdoor range. Like Perry said, they spent $170,000 on mitigation unsuccessfully. So before CPW and the Department of Natural Resources makes any decision, we'd like to make the priority health, safety, and well-being of the people affected. The kids that are going to school, the desensitization is, it's just wrong. It's just wrong. So we're hopeful that a solution can be resolved here. I really think, I got another minute, this is great. I think if people can come together, if both sides can come together and are motivated to come together, until they're both motivated, it's not going to happen. How do you motivate both sides? Temporarily keep the range closed or temporarily reopen the range with sunset dates to find a solution. There's a lot of smart people in this room. There's land swaps. There's a lot of things that can happen. But guys, this is about location. And 40, 50 years ago, it was a non-issue. Now it's 7 days a week. And we don't need to subject our kids to that anymore. Thank you.
Okay. Just a reminder, we know we're going to hear views tonight, some that you're going to like, some that you're going to not. One of the ground rules is to listen respectfully and try to listen empathetically, and try to understand that other point of view. Again, it's about community building and solution building. And so I just want to encourage that as we head into this open comment period, because again, this is a chance for you all to express solutions, and we do ask you all to really focus on solutions. So as we transition to this next little bit here, let me just tell you what it's going to look like. We will use the remainder of the hour to offer anyone the chance, to the extent that it fits within this hour, to offer a 1-minute comment. Again, please focus on a solution. We know that it can take a little bit of that minute to get to express your concern and get to that solution, but please bring it home with a solution, or at least a question that is framed around how do you get to solutions. So with that in mind, it's about brainstorming, it's about getting lots of ideas on the table. I said earlier, it's not about voting with the number of comments saying the same thing. If you want to agree with someone, please do so succinctly so we can keep it rolling and hear from more people. And just keep in mind all of those other ground rules about time limits. We'll put the 60 seconds on the screen, and focusing on the scope at hand, which is solutions for the shooting range. So once again, we'll use both microphones. Rebecca and Johanna will once again hold those microphones for you so that they can help you wrap up at your 60-second mark. If we can't get to all solutions tonight and all those comments, again, there's an opportunity to post out on the board. Or if you are one of those folks who doesn't want to come to a microphone, because we fully respect and understand that, use the comment boards, use the comment cards, go use the online form that's at the CPW website. Those are all ways to provide ideas. And we'll be using these ideas into the next meeting to try to build out more detailed discussion, small group discussion in that kind of format. Okay, so with all of that in mind, remember, please share your name and town of residence. We'll open it up. I'm just gonna switch my clock over and we'll open it up to whoever would like to come forward.
Hi, I'm Skip Harlow, Basalt. I'm actually a hunter ed instructor here in the Mid-Valley. But I remember back in the late 80s, maybe it was early 90s, going to a city council, I guess it was a city council meeting in Basalt when they were proposing building up around the range. And the word that sticks in my mind that at that meeting, it was that the range would remain open in perpetuity. You know, people, when the contractors got the okay to build that subdivision up there, and the people moved in to buy it, they were going to sign something that said, we understand there's a range there, and we're okay with that. We're purchasing this property. So if you would go back and look in the archives, I'm sure you can find that meeting, the notes or the minutes from that meeting, where it says the range will remain in perpetuity at this location. And just an FYI, the schools have been here forever. They haven't moved closer to the range.
Thanks. Thanks, and we'll keep it rolling again. Try to offer some solutions as well, please. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Keith Olson, Colorado native. I've lived here since 2002. I've used the range quite a bit. As I look around this room, I see a wealth of talent in excavation and building. Why can't we look at keeping the property that we currently have without spending more funds, enclosing the rifle range and the pistol range, which is going to be the most sound intrusive on everybody. I think it's the rapid fire from the pistol range and the rifle range that really gets to people. As far as the shotgun range goes, there's more fat chewing going on up there as opposed to shooting, unless of course you're Bob Perigo, who can shoot 3 trap faster than you can flip a coin and say tails. I think that would be better spent. And also another thing, you did bring it up, but I do want to bring up this point. In the time that I've lived here since 2002, there's been 2 fires. Those 2 fires were both started under negligence and not under regular range usage. Thanks.
Thank you.
My name's Mike Sampson. I'm from Rifle. And the reason I'm here is I'm also a Garfield County Commissioner. And I represent that commission as well as myself. I've been authorized to speak for them. I want to say thank you to the staff. You have a tough job. And thank you for the 4 commissioners that are here on the Wildlife Commission. You have a tough job too. We as county commissioners of Garfield County, we have many of our people use your range here in Basalt. We hope that you can come to a solution. We support you. We know you can. A lot of smart people working on this. Please leave that range open. Thank you.
Hi, I'm John Scholler. I've lived here since 1980, and I'm just wondering, where would you like us to shoot tomorrow?
Again, encourage folks, offer solutions to the questions you pose as well, if you can. Go ahead.
My name is John Beckus. I'm the Vice President of the Shooting Sports Committee for the Western Colorado Council of the Boy Scouts. I've been teaching shooting to the Boy Scouts for over 20 years. We've been using this range as well as the one in Glenwood and in Rifle. This is by far the better range. We teach safety. We have RSOs. We have a senior RSO that can help teach more RSOs, and I think by providing some of the RSOs, I didn't ask you for a comment, sir. You please be quiet while I speak. Okay? Thank you. Okay. Anyway, I think, like I said, we can help with this range as far as providing RSOs because we can teach them and we can have a safe place for our youth to learn to shoot correctly, just like Perry was talking about. So please keep this range open and keep it in its present location.
Real quickly, again, my name is Chris Wyckoff. I was born and raised here. I grew up shooting on this range. I learned gun safety from the Basalt range. My number one concern at the moment is coming into hunting season. There's a lot of people coming from out of town, and they just want to sight in their firearm before they go take a shot at an animal, and they don't injure it. They actually kill it. So my solution up here at the moment is maybe just an idea is maybe we could set 1 or 2 days up before those seasons start, just because it'd calm down the majority of this room. And, you know, we have certain times, so, you know, after school or whatever, you know, certain days that we would all get calm, have our guns ready to go so we don't injure an animal. And that's my main concern. I think location swapping with all the smart people in this room that have access to land and things like that, I think that in the final, that would be the ultimate decision. But I think calming down the people in this room would just have 1 or 2 days open where we can actually go get our guns lined up. So that's what I want.
Hello, my name is Kellen Johnson. I am here to represent for keeping the gun range open for 4-H Club. One solution would be keeping 24/7 security on the field. So making sure nobody's shooting no illegal ammo, no illegal targets, nothing else like that. And also another thing is keeping 24/7 fire dehydrants on the field and keeping signs. If you see sparks or fire, please tell somebody.
Gentlemen, Jimmy Hunter, Basalt Mountain. I've been a competitive shooter, an NRA certified 3-gun instructor, and as well as a USPSA Chief Range Officer. Been a lot of ranges on the Western Slope. I would like to respectfully submit 2 suggestions to help mitigate the possible fire issue. The first is to increase the berms. They're way too low, and they should be a lot higher and a lot softer. Second, I agree with the xeriscaping. That'd be a great idea. Third, recruit and staff the range with either paid or qualified volunteer range officers. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ryan Welsh. I grew up shooting on this range and have watched the range be a driving force of community for Basalt, not only developing responsible youth such as myself and responsible young men and women, but also as a strong source of revenue into the town of Basalt. One of my concerns lies in the suggestion that the range is closed or moved. And correct me if I'm wrong, Perry, but the land that the range is on is declared a federal wasteland and cannot be used for anything else. And to build off of what Bart said, if we were to move the range, destroying more wildlife land, leaving a useless hole where people will continue to shoot regardless. And having attended both elementary school and middle school in Basalt over the course of 8 years, gunfire was never noticed.
Good evening. Good evening, Rich Connor, Carbondale for 22 years. And we've talked a lot about solutions, but we haven't really identified the problem. And I think the problem we need to address is, of course, going back to the wildfire, which we just experienced, which was pretty horrific for everybody. Even in, with my Carbondale address, I had to evacuate. Moving the range to another spot, you're going to have to do fire mitigation. You're going to have to do all these things, which we should have been doing here a long time ago. I know there's a lot of resistance of the frying pan and in this area to doing that for whatever reason. But we really need to focus on the real problem at hand. We've addressed noise in the past. We've done the noise mitigation. We have a lot of apparently young youth here that are actually very well spoken and don't seem to be too affected from the gunfire. So let's focus on the actual problem and fire mitigation. And I think we've probably got another good 30 years now to be safe. So, thank you.
Stacy Kraft, Basalt. We were told that this was going to be a solutions meeting, and so I hope people can stick with solutions. Like he said, understanding the problem is key. We have a 2010 document, 2 documents from the town that outline pretty much everything you would need to have a safe range. Almost none of those things are in place. The CPW has failed to honor the town's resolutions that came out of Sportsmen's committee. Those resolutions talk about lead. We have 45 years of accumulated lead up there. It's right next to a spring, a creek, a pond that drains into the Roaring Fork River. Where are the lead tests about that? We want to keep our town safe. If they will just use that 2010 document, that's a really good solution to start figuring out what the problem is and to figure out what we need to do to address it. The problem literally is location. No one else has a gun range and they're downtown. It's weird. We need to move it a couple of miles outside of town, and let's work together to find that location, because it is possible. Every other community has figured this out. Basalt shouldn't be different. We're really smart.
Hi, I'm Bruce Bowen. I'm a physician in the community for 19 years. I grew up in Texas and Oklahoma and around guns. In fact, I'm the only one in my family that doesn't own one. But my concern is first the health and safety of the community. The fire was very scary. There's going to be ongoing economic and psychological and physical effects from this fire for many years and many people. So I came up with a whole list of suggestions that I was going to post on Facebook, but frankly, I was part of the silent majority, and people were very negative on that Facebook, and I didn't feel like there was any negotiation or any consensus. So I wrote down almost everything you had on that slide, and it's in a card on the box out there before this started. So it included 24/7 video, included supervision, included registration, certification of all shooters, getting rid of automatic weapons, having a closed range, and when it's locked, and no one can get in it. So we got to do those things.
Thanks. Please keep the solutions coming, and I apologize for my couple moments of human error over here. The clock's being a little tricky for me. Go ahead.
My name's John Dodds. I live in El Jebel, and I've lived in the valley since 1978. And at that time, we were shooting TVs at the range. I was fortunate enough to been invited to a private range, and although this range obviously involves some cash flow to make it happen, all the shooting was done with pistols and 22 rifles indoors, no noise, and all of the heavy rifle shooting was done underground in sewer pipes that were lined up. You didn't hear any noise. It was not out in the country. It was not in a gun-friendly state. If the state of New Jersey can have a range like this, so can Colorado.
Larry Emery, a 30-year Roaring Fork Valley resident, RF SVA member. It's a solution, so it counts. So Roaring Fork Valley Sportsmen's Association has certified range safety officers. We have the ability to train range safety officers. We're more than willing to partner with CPW, the town of Basalt, if they're willing to work with us and provide safety officers so that big game hunters can target, shoot, can get ready for the big game season safely and not go out dispersed into lands and cause more conflicts. Thank you.
Hi, Rob Levitt from Basalt. We have world-class skiing, we have world-class fishing, we have world-class biking. Why not a world-class gun range? Make it safe, make it quiet, and make it fireproof.
Chris Stoner, Snowmass. My kids grew up, they did pheasant hunting with the DOW at a young age. They've done 4-H shooting. They have hunting licenses for this fall, and I just want to know that how many people out here is willing to join me and get trained as a volunteer RSO?
Okay, great. Coming down this side.
My name's Roger Heinz. I've lived in this valley for 19 years. I grew up since I was 6 years old shooting myself, then my daughters, my granddaughters, my grandsons. The problem is one of this incident being caused by bad, dumb behavior. And regardless of what we do in controlling this range, you cannot eliminate bad behavior. So the problem is not so much the noise or the fire, which was devastating, it's coming up with a solution at our range that we can control more than you can control in the general forest population. So I'm a strong proponent of keeping this range open and managing it with these solutions better. Thank you.
I am. Hi, my name's John Swanson. I've been a resident of the Valley for, 39 years or so. Was one of the founding officers of the Roaring Fork Valley Sportsmen's Association. I was also responsible for the plat note on the wilds that states that the adjoining use is that of a shooting range, and it is unlikely that that use will change at any time in the future. That apparently has not affected the values of the real property at the wilds because they've doubled. Not too much in the way of solutions other than let's legislate against stupidity.
Okay, plenty of time to keep the comments rolling. So especially if you have solutions in mind that haven't been said up here yet, please make sure you come to the microphone. That could include drilling down in more detail on some of the things that have been put out, but you want to offer more specifics. So go ahead.
Hi, my name's Ted. I'm originally from London. I used to work for the British military, and talking about close proximity to buildings. I was working in a school in London, and we had a pipe range, which is basically in the middle of Wimbledon. We didn't have any complaints about a pipe range. If we need to discuss about how a pipe range is built and used, then I can help you on that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Steve Saunders again. I don't have a solution, but I have a cause. I have a 17-year-old son. It takes everything in the world to get him to put down his cell phone or his games. There's two things I can get him out the door to do. One is fishing, one is hunting. It's never an issue with him. He's just, let it out, let's go. Now, another thing, another cause. If any of you have ever been to that rifle range or that range when the DAV is in town, you would insist that that range opens tomorrow and preps for the DAV, even though they're 5 months away. Thank you.
I'm Bart Chandler, still up on the frying pan. I think it's clear that moving the range is not a viable solution. We can talk about it. The money's involved, and finding a location is probably impossible in this valley. The range itself does not pose any greater danger today than it did 6 weeks ago. What we need is supervision on the range. If we can put supervision in place immediately, the range could open immediately and serve the people in this valley. Personally, it's costing me thousands of dollars a month while this is closed. I pay the CPW for the right to use the range, and I pay them a percentage of what I make. They're not making that money now. The range needs to be open because we've talked about sighting rifles in.
Thank you.
People are going to go out and shoot in the hills.
Let's go right here.
Hi, I'm Cindy Kerr. I live in Basalt. I believe a solution can only come if we have more community input sessions. 2 short meetings does not allow the community to come together to create a home class solution. And if you want to talk about losing money, I'm an accountant for several businesses in town. One particular business lost $136,000 because of this fire. So don't complain about losing money because the range is closed. This range, in my opinion, there are only 2 viable solutions: enclose it or relocate it. There's noise, there's lead pollution, and you know, we live with the consequences of this shooting range. A lot of you don't live here in Basalt and live with these consequences. So we need to have a community-based, in Basalt, solutions.
I'm Doug Grant, and I've lived in Basalt all my life. And I take exception with what Mr. Will said. I think that Christine was purchased in the 60s, as I remember it as a cattle ranch. I knew Bob Terrell, Rick Adams, and a little bit about Perry Will. And I shot up there before it ever was a range. It was a pig pen down by where the road crosses the creek. There was a calving shed up above and a grain silo. We were even paid a nickel to shoot any groundhog that was out there by the Luxingers. I knew Christine Luxinger herself, and I've shot out there all the time since I was a young kid, just like I say, shooting groundhogs when it was a cattle ranch. The thing, I think, yes, there's a lot of ways that can be done to make it a safe shooting range, a little safer for fire than it is today, and I think we need to do them. I think we need to keep it at the same place. One thing I'd like to say here, in closing, if I might, the moniker on Basalt is we're a diversity. We're all inclusive.
Thanks.
We are diversified.
Okay.
We're all inclusive.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Michael Kerr. Basalt since 1974. Does that year ring a bell? Anyway, since most of these comments aren't about solutions, I'm going to just challenge the CPW. You know, your mandate is to take care of the wildlife, yet the shooting range has been accumulating lead since 1940 with no mitigation. Where's the accountability of the wildlife or the community of Basalt? I mean, there's toxins of lead that has 700-year half-life. It is known, I'll quote a couple things here. Lead-based ammunition is likely the greatest and largely unregulated source of lead knowingly discharged into the environment in the United States. Also, the discharge of lead-based ammunition and accumulation of spent lead-based ammunition in this environment poses significant health risks to humans and wildlife. Health risks, these quotes are from health risks from lead-based ammunition in the environment, a consensus statement of scientists.
Thank you. So again, sometimes the solutions come to the end, come toward the end. I'm listening for them too, but see if we can front load with them if we can. And if you do have a problem that you've identified, try to offer a solution with it too. Go right here.
My name is Todd Emerson. I'm a Mid-Valley resident, like many others here for a number of decades. Just a couple of concepts or ideas. Noise seems to be one of the growing concerns. 30 years ago, people shot shotguns on the weekend occasionally. Now we hear automatic, or not semi-automatic, whatever it is, rapid fire, loud rapid fire. Perhaps the DOW or the Parks and Wildlife would consider some actions to limit high-capacity magazines. There's a five limit capacity for hunting rifles in the state. Why not use the same rules? But we can use subsonic ammunition. Reduces the sound impact substantially. Anyway, just a couple of ideas. We should all try and get along and cooperate. There are users and there are people impacted. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Michael Bear. I'm 5th generation Basalt. My kids are 6th. My grandkids are 7th. I'm a Boy Scout leader, a certified instructor through the scouting program. I also became a chief range safety officer, so I can train range safety officers. As a solution, I would like to offer my services, if I can, to help CPW build a better SOP for the range and help train the volunteers. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Maureen Bratcher, and I live in Carbondale. And I'm also a range officer up at the shooting range. I work for RFVSA and have for the last 10 years. I also instruct. And I think one of the solutions is definitely to have some more supervision up there. And I'm perfectly willing to work with whomever needs to have training and so forth to get that in. We also need to concentrate on getting the right facts. If you read through some of the documentation that has been brought up for our agreement with the town of Basalt, it has been done to the letter. The lead problem that you cite is a non-problem. They did a study about this over a 10-year period of time, and there was no progress as far as lead poisoning. The creek isn't a problem because the creek dried up 2 or 3 years ago. So we'll work towards a solution. Thank you.
Hi, Mike from Basalt. Remember me? Solutions. It's going to come through communication. We urge you and Bob Randall, let's get together with the core community groups to communicate. There's a lot of information out there that we can share. Communication is the only way. It just is. So we're going to encourage you to help us with that, and our town manager, who's done a good job doing that so far with us. Let's continue that. That's our hope. Thank you.
So I think I might have a possible solution. If you were to take, like, at schools they have the fire alarm thing where you push in and pull it down to set off the fire alarm, and it notifies the fire department that there's a fire in the school as well as people in the school. I wonder if you were to maybe put 1 or 2 at the shooting range, if you were to push it down and pull it, it might notify the fire department that there's a fire or notify law enforcement that there is unlawful activity going on.
My name is Carl Page. I'm a longtime Basalt resident, and I work closely with the gun range. The solutions are all on the table. They've already been put out there. There's a lot of great solutions. Drilling down on which ones are viable and which ones are not is really the next step. What I would say that this whole situation started with an irresponsible decision, and it would be an irresponsible decision to leave this range closed while any of these solutions come about. So I'm here to say that this range needs to stay open and in its present location for the safety of our community, the health of our children, because the lead and everything else will just get spread across the backcountry. Our children, my kids went to school here their whole lives, never complained about any gunshot noises or anything like that. They're perfectly fine kids. And if people are truly concerned about the safety, then having these people out in the backcountry and the lead that they talk about spread around the whole area instead of concentrated where we can deal with it, completely different thing.
Hi, my name is Kimberley Walsh, and I live in the valley here. And my son spoke earlier. He's part of 4-H in the Garfield County Shooting Club, and I know nothing about shooting, nothing about guns. And I've had the opportunity to go up there and watch these young kids and adults. And Bob Perigo runs a tight ship up there, and it's so impressive. Now, on the other side, where it's more to the public, I could see where a knucklehead could show up and do what happened. And I totally understand the concerns. So I think the solution for making it safer and checking people and having more management there is obviously something that we need to do, but I think that it could be a world-class shooting range, and anyone who's not familiar with trap and skeet and the sport, go up there and check it out. It's wonderful.
Hi, Mike Lyons, Aspen. One knucklehead gets drunk and drives on the road and kills somebody. You don't close the roads. to offer some solutions. Put in some permanent fire mitigation in there, 2-inch plastic lines, possibly even underground. Put in some nice sod on the berms and in that entire area and irrigate that area. And then come in there and mow it and keep it real nice. That'll help improve the shooting experience and help with fire mitigation in that area.
Harry Mayer was from the town of Basalt. Office has been in the town of Basalt for 40 years. Live up where the Panorama fire was. It's funny, the Panorama fire went through and it was out of sight, so it was quiet. It destroyed more public property than any of this fire. 2,400 acres of public property, my entire property. I do have a solution that I think, about 5 years ago, you instated a requirement to have a hunting license or habitat stamp to use the range. And what I saw was a real change in attitude there. It was a more professional shooting area at that time. It's since has been dropped. I don't know why, but it's just, I could see a big difference. Also, sat on the board for 4 years when the Wilds was approved. Jackie Whitsitt sat next to me and approved the Wilds with the conditions that the range would not leave.
Thanks.
Mark Obadia, 50-year resident. Been shooting at this range for 42 years of it. Talk a little bit about lead mitigation. Possible solution would be maybe to dig up that area and make a barrier underneath it so that it would catch everything, all the lead out of it, of all that we shoot, that later on, let's say we collect it every 5 years or 10 years, then we pull it away. And as part of a solution to mitigate, if a lot of people seem to have that issue with the lead, maybe we can do something with that. But maybe we can talk about it.
My name is Dan Shipp, and I grew up a redneck in Mississippi. One of the things that we learned how to do down there in the last 4 or 5 years is to buy silencers for our guns. You can buy them legally now. They cost you a little money, but I think I'd like to see the range encourage people to use silencers on your heavy guns to make them. I was shooting a .308, and it sounded like a .22 rifle going off down on the lake down at my brother's house. So encourage people to use silencers up there. You'll solve a lot of problems with these people worried about noise.
Hi, my name's Bill Fontana. I've been in the valley for quite a while. I remember shooting pistols at the old Smuggler Mines right in Aspen. No one seemed to mind back then. I don't have a solution to the problem, but I think what we need to do for safety's sake, if nothing else, is to reopen the range. Nothing else is going to happen. Have it monitored, have it supervised, but reopen the range tomorrow and work on resolutions while the range is open. Don't keep it closed.
Just to time check, we have about 10 more minutes, which is 10 more comments. Again, especially if you have something in your mind that hasn't been shared yet, please make sure to come up and get it on the table for us.
Oh, hi. My name's Bronwyn Anglin from Basalt area. Just in listening to all of this, I've been thinking you cannot put a boat into Rudai without an inspection. Even if you took it out the day before, you have to have it inspected before you put it back in the next day. Nobody seems to have a problem with this because we don't want zebra mussels in our lake. I'm wondering if the same source of funding that funds the inspection for Rudai could be used for an inspection, a supervised inspection position at the range, wherever it's located. Thanks.
Yeah, my name is Dale Combs. I live up on the Frying Pan. I am an outfitter. I would just like to expand a little bit on the use of the National Forest shooting ranges. I think one reason why a lot of us live in this valley is because of the public lands and the way we use them, whether it's hiking, biking, horseback riding, or whatever. I operate my business up there with horses. I live right next to an area across the creek on the road from a undesignated shooting range that is set up on the National Forest. I get tired of hearing bullets whiz over my head, guns going off with my horses involved, and I think if without a gun range, this is going to get a whole lot worse, folks. So let's keep the range open, okay?
Harry Merrigan. As far as getting together and creating solutions, I think the town manager and the board should reach out instead of coming out with there are already 7 against or the range and none in favor. I think the public, they need to gather with the public and discuss this before they come out with something. I know when I was on the board, we listened to 2 sides and we came up with solutions. So I sat on the board, we went through a lot. We did a lot for this town back in the 80s, and Basalt has grown because of that. And again, anywhere you put the range, I live 8 miles from the fire now, and I was evacuated, so it came 8 miles, and I had to relive what I lived 16 years ago, which was devastation. So thank you.
Hi, my name is Joe Gasper. I live in the Aspen area. I use this range. I've used many other ranges in the state. And I think that a solution to our problem could be barriers. I don't know if this is the German solution that they talked about, but other ranges I've been to have like large wood barriers that are above the shooting range that limit the trajectory of the shot. This fire wasn't caused by someone shooting an incendiary round into the backstop at the range. If that had occurred, a fire never would have started. This was caused by someone shooting an incendiary round past that area and into the woods. So if we limit the distance that the round can be shot, we could prevent this.
Hi, I'm Stan Tenner. I've been a first responder in the Valley since 1975, and I've also been shooting at that range since then. I think, first of all, lead contamination is more a function of mining in this valley than shooting, that's for sure. There's lots of lead dredged up in the process of mining. That's been going on for over 100 years. Secondly, shooting and hunting in our area is a billion-dollar industry in Colorado, and we're right in the middle of it. And I think the town of Basalt should be aware not to shoot themselves in the foot by chasing that business away. So that's just my comments. Thank you.
Okay, time for just a few more. Again, please get some additional solutions on the table.
Hi, Johan Morlin from Snowmass. I got more of a question. Well, first of all, I'm all for keeping the shooting range where it is. My question is more like economically, it all comes down to the money. It must be a hell of a lot more expensive to buy a piece of property in this valley than it would be, to get someone working the range, doing the sound protection and mitigation, for fire. It must be a hell of a lot cheaper to keep it where it is right now and doing these things instead of buying a piece of property in this valley. I think the cheapest piece of property in this valley is Leadville. Thanks.
Good evening, I'm Phil Eastley. I've lived in the valley since 1963, and one of the things I haven't heard tonight is the ease with which water could be brought down from the irrigated fields above the range to mitigate fire hazard and suppression on the ranges. So I think that's a viable solution that should please a lot of the community, and I think it's one that should be pursued.
Okay. Last call then. It better be a really good solution.
So good.
One thing we need to keep in mind with this range, as opposed to the other ranges that are 3, 5, 10 miles away from a city, Basalt's finest is 1 minute away from this range, police and fire. And they have been called, and I have seen them show up when they are needed. And I think that is a big deal with this range, that they are that quick to respond when there is an issue of negligence or somebody that is just starting to get out of control at the range. And I have been up there personally when alcohol was in use. They were called, they were there in less than a minute. And I think that's something we all need to keep in mind. 3 miles away, that's a big difference. Thanks.
Okay, thanks all. It looks like we've satisfied all the needs you have to come up to the microphone. Thank you, particularly for the solutions that folks offered. I think, again, as I was listening, even where maybe it wasn't stated explicitly, we can mine some solutions from some of the comments made, or at least mine the questions that then prompt the solutions, and so we thank you for that as well. And this really is going to conclude in just a moment with JT and Perry's wrap-up the kind of formal program for this evening. So I'll give you a few notes on what comes next, but then we'll let Perry and JT close up. So just by way of reminder, there are more ways to provide feedback. It's not a quantitative exercise, but qualitative, so please make sure you're getting ideas into the hopper that maybe haven't been added yet, or add specificity to ideas that were just outlined in broad brushstrokes. You can do that through written comments in the hallway. There's 4 different questions on your agenda that are then given corresponding comment boards out in the hallway. They include looking at solutions, further detailing if you have specifics around a concern. What are some trade-offs? What are criteria or ways that you would want to think about those solutions? How would you like to further engage on those solutions? There's been mention of potential extensions of community dialogue beyond these meetings, and so we'll look to this next meeting to collect information that can feed into that, as well as collect any information on folks who want to be engaged in that. So those are the ways to continue to provide input. And I'm going to turn the mic over to close out the evening.
Thanks. It's funny when she said Perry and I were going to close out the meeting, half the room left. I just really quickly, your time is the most precious thing in the world, and there's no easy answers to me, and I'll tell you what I've told a lot of folks, that it may sound simple or easy to close the range down, and that may be the easy solution. I don't know if that's the right solution. I'm not so sure that going out and just opening that range tomorrow is the right solution either, and I think I actually took away solutions from everybody that spoke tonight. And I've got a lot of that down, and this is the beginning of things, and I appreciate the need and desire to try and get a range open or an opportunity available for folks to be able to side in. We've got hunting seasons right around the corner. It's the second biggest industry in the state of Colorado next to the skiing. So we're taking these things to heart. We're moving forward. I'll let Perry say thank you, but for me personally, I really appreciate it. I hope you guys and more can make it next week, and we're going to move forward from there. So thank you very much, guys.
Yes, I want to thank everyone for coming and for your comments. It's really helpful. And moving forward, we're going to come up with some solutions and satisfy, I think, most everyone. I do want to say that I'm very impressed with the youth in this room. So I think the youth in this room should tell most of you how important the shooting sports are to this area. So I appreciate all the youth showing up, and I appreciate the youth coming up and speaking too. It takes some nerve for those kids to come up here and get on the microphone. So, and I appreciate everyone's comments, really do. So thank you.